Hello everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic. I hope you've all had a wonderful holiday, and now it's time to see what happened at AEW Worlds End. The first match on the pre-show is Kris Statlander versus Willow Nightingale. Statlander stares down Stokely Hathaway on guest commentary during her entrance and throws her jacket at him as well. He's been trying to recruit her recently and be her manager, but clearly she's not too happy about that. There's a handshake to start because after all this is a babyface versus babyface contest, and then Willow gets on top early on with a nice cannonball off the apron. Statlander gains control for a while as Stokely on commentary talks about her being a potential future contender for the AEW Women's title. Both women exchange a lot of vertical suplexes, chaining them together. Willow later on hits a big pounce and a cannonball in the corner, followed by a Death Valley driver, but it only gets a near fall. Willow manages to slip out of a Saturday Night Fever attempt from Kris, but then she gains control and heads up top, but misses the big 450 as Willow rolls out of the way. They hit the finishing sequence and unfortunately get in a bit of a tangle, it seems, maybe a miscommunication somewhere. Willow hits something. It seemed to be a big miscommunication, but Statlander kicks out anyway, and wisely Willow hits another move for the finish, a big sit-out powerbomb, and that's enough for 3. Next up, we see a vignette featuring Serena Deeb. She's in a straitjacket and she's ready to return. Very exciting indeed. The next match is the 20-man Battle Royal, with the winner getting a TNT title shot. There's a big brawl on the outside to start. Everybody teams up to bury Archer and Killswitch under a stack of tables, the two biggest guys in the match, so they want to take them out early. Serpentico is the first man eliminated after being slammed by Rocky Romero, who doesn't seem to be able to get him up at first, but then gets mystical strength given to him by his ally Danhausen. Kip Sabian eliminates Dalton Castle very early on, which is surprising as Castle was one of the ones to get like a big featured entrance at the start. Another big name out early is Johnny TV, and then Cool Hand Ange gets taken out after nice double team maneuvers from the Dark Order. The story of the early portion of the match seems to be Kip Sabian working together nicely with the Butcher and the Blade to eliminate a lot of people, including both Reynolds and Silver. The bounty hunter Brian Keith, who recently faced Orange Cassidy on TV, manages to eliminate Sabian, but then the Butcher and the Blade team up to take him out of the match as well. Finally, Lance Archer is up and in the match after a long, time recovering on the outside. He starts getting multiple eliminations, including a big scary one on Rocky Romero. Action Andretti stops Archer's roll by downing a water bottle in one go. Great stuff. Then Killswitch gets in, and the two big lads manage to take both Andretti and Darius Martin out, and the Butcher and the Blade. This leaves us with a final four of Archer, Killswitch, Danhausen, and Trent Beretta. Trent and Danhausen eliminate Lance Archer together, and they have a big celebratory hug, but then Trent turns on Danhausen and throws him out. He's the last man in with Killswitch and hits multiple running knees, but then Killswitch hits him with a big choke slam. Both men end up on the apron battling back and forth, and it's Killswitch who ends up knocking Trent off the side to win the match and secure that TNT title shot against either his mentor, his stablemate Christian Cage, or Adam Copeland, depending on results later on. The final match of the pre-show is the FTW Rules Match, basically no DQ, for the FTW title, with Hook defending against Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler is out first with a mic and cuts a heel promo running down the Long Island crowd, but he gets interrupted by a loud horn. Is Hook going to come out in some kind of vehicle? No, he just walks out normally. Apparently that is the New York Islanders hockey horn. Wahey! Wheeler tries to jump Hook before the bell, but Hook's ready and takes it to him with strikes. They battle to the outside and Wheeler gets suplexed on the ramp, but then he takes control a little bit later on and batters Hook around the ringside area, even staring down Taz on commentary, but it allows Hook to get back into things, blindsiding Wheeler with a big clothesline. A little bit later on, Yuta avoids Red Rum, then they exchange suplexes back and forth until Hook suplexes Wheeler into a trash can in the corner. He then gets Red Rum applied, but Yuta slams Hook back first onto a different trash can, then hits a DDT onto a stop sign, but Hook kicks out just in time. Wheeler gets a 2x4 from the outside, but Hook answers him with a hockey stick, using it to trip Wheeler. Then he gets in the ring, hits him over the back, and applies Red Rum with the hockey stick for the submission victory. Hook is still the FTW champion, and on commentary, Taz is very proud, and that's sweet. The first match of the main show is an 8-man tag team match featuring most of the unsuccessful competitors in the Continental Classic. We've got Brody King, Jay Lethal, Rush, and Jay White teaming up against Claudio Castagnoli, Mark Briscoe, Daniel Garcia, and Bryan Danielson. Garcia is ready to dance during his entrance, but Bryan's entrance interrupts him. Oh no. Nigel McGuinness is, of course, massively mocking Bryan during his entrance. Surely that bout must be coming at some point in the future, hopefully. Claudio and Rush start things off with Rush suplexing Claudio scarily to the outside of the ring, but he seems okay. Briscoe and Lethal are in next, and they slap hands very sportingly before chopping the hell out of each other. It's a stalemate, so they tag in Bryan and Jay White. Danielson takes control and starts laying in those yes kicks, but then Garcia blind tags in to steal the limelight, just like Bryan did during his entrance. Brody King starts dominating the match and then gets in Matt Menard's face on guest commentary. The crowd are right behind Daddy Magic. Garcia becomes the face in peril. Also, he gets his nose busted open at some point. I didn't quite catch where, but he does get the hot tag to Mark Briscoe, and the match all breaks down. Mark starts hitting moves off the apron, including a big elbow drop. Back in the ring, Castagnoli gets the tag and exchanges strikes with Brody King. He then hits a huge delayed vertical suplex on Brody, very impressive indeed, and a big swing on Brody as well, with Bryan adding in a drop kick for good measure. It all breaks down again, and everyone starts hitting their signature moves on each other until Garcia avoids the lethal injection and rolls up Jay Lethal for the 3 count. The action doesn't stop after the bell, however, as Garcia dances with his babyface partners in the ring, but at ringside, Brody King hits Menard at commentary, and at the bottom of the ramp, Sonjay Dutt is seen scolding Lethal for losing the match. More developments, I'm sure, down the line. Next up, we have Miro versus Andrade, with CJ Perry in Andrade's corner. Miro is obviously not happy about this and attacks Andrade before the bell. Andrade fights back, but Miro starts throwing him around with suplexes and then argues with CJ at ringside, who shouts back at him, and they are not on good terms. Miro, though, continues to dominate at the start of this match, slamming Andrade into the announce table, but then Andrade returns the favor, shoving Miro clean over the announce table into the commentary team's area. Back in the ring, Miro nails a big superplex, but again, Andrade slowly fights his way back into the match with lots of chops. He then goes for the running knees in the corner, but Miro rolls to the outside, so Andrade follows him with a big moonsault. He then hugs CJ to celebrate to big heat from the crowd. Back in the ring, Miro nails the big matchka kick and locks in the game over, but CJ urges Andrade not to tap, and he makes the ropes. Andrade then hits his big back elbow out of nowhere, and it gets a very near fall. He locks in the figure 4 leg lock, transitions into the figure 8, but Miro rolls over to counter it, but then Andrade rolls back and reapplies the figure 8, but then CJ breaks it up behind the referee's back. That's her client. What's she doing? Miro hits the big kick again, but again it's only good enough for 2. This is, however, very much the closing stretch. CJ's interference really turned the tide. Miro locks in the game over, and that's all she wrote, with Andrade tapping out. CJ looks very pleased with herself at ringside, but Miro doesn't fully look in on it. I'm not sure if he knew this was going to happen. He just seems a bit confused. So we'll see where that storyline heads going forwards. But the other big thing to mention, of course, is that there's lots of rumors out there that Andrade will be potentially leaving AEW soon. So we'll have to see what happens there as well. Next up, it's the AEW Women's title match. Timeless Toni Storm defending against Riho. Toni uses her size advantage early on, but Riho fights back with her quickness and agility. Riho leaps to the outside, but is caught by Luther, who hands Riho politely to Toni, who slams her on the floor. Back in the ring, Riho gets a roll-up for 2 before Toni retakes control. She continues to grind Riho down, then, in a very unique move, gets on Luther's shoulders on the outside, grabs Riho's hair, and commands Luther to charge, using his momentum to throw Riho off the apron. Toni then locks in the single crab back in the ring. Riho crawls to the ropes, but Luther pulls the bottom rope away, but the referee catches it and ejects him. Riho fights back with a 619 and a crossbody, followed by a big power slam, as big as Riho. Well, yeah, it is a big power slam on someone bigger than her, I suppose. What am I talking about? It's like WrestleMania 3! Huge power slam, but it only gets 2. Riho with a big diving crossbody to the outside presses her advantage, followed by a double stomp on the apron. Back inside, Toni misses the hip attack, but hits Storm 0, but it's only a near fall. Riho gets a flash roll-up for another 2, but then Toni hits the Storm 1 DDT and picks up the victory, retaining the AEW Women's World Championship. Mariah May comes out to join the celebration, throwing rose petals to celebrate, and Toni rolls around in them on the canvas. She's still the women's champion. Next up, we have Swerve Strickland versus Dustin Rhodes, a last-minute replacement for the injured Keith Lee. Swerve attacks Dustin as he gets in the ring before the match has even officially begun and throws him around the ringside area. Prince Nana drags a cinder block out from under the ring and Swerve stomps Dustin's ankle through it. The medical team tried to take a reluctant Dustin to the back, but he says no, he limps back to the ring and wants to go ahead with the match. Swerve immediately attacks at the bell and obviously works that injured foot. They head up top and Dustin fights back with a headbutt and a crossbody, then hits the Canadian Destroyer and a quick power slam, but it only gets 2. Dustin then hits Shattered Dreams and knocks Nana off the apron before hitting Swerve with the Crossroads for a near fall. It doesn't take long, however, before Swerve is back in control, locking in a stretch muffler, but Dustin makes the ropes. Again, Swerve resumes control of the match, but Dustin is very defiant. He gives him the double fingers and spits in his face. This doesn't amuse Swerve, who hits a pair of house call kicks to the side of the head and then a Penta-esque arm-breaking spot. From there, Strickland heads up top, hits the Swerve stomp, and picks up the win. It's a dominant victory, obviously under dubious circumstances given the pre-match attack, but yeah, Swerve stays hot and even makes the belt motion as he departs up the ramp. Next up, this was originally meant to be a tag title match between Ricky Starks, Big Bill, and the Golden Jets, but now, after Kenny Omega was recently sidelined with health issues, it's a non-title 8-man tag. We've got Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Sting taking on Starks, Bill, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Konosuke Takeshita. There's a Judas sing-along when Jericho comes out, but given recent allegations made against him, I mean, it goes without saying, he gets booed throughout this match. The bell rings, and Sammy starts off in control of Takeshita. He tags in Jericho, who then gets thrown around by Big Bill, but fights back with an eye poke and tags in Darby. Darby goes for the coffin drop on Takeshita, but Don Callis distracts him from the outside, and Takeshita heads up top to join Darby before hitting him with like a very impressive avalanche. It's kind of an avalanche blue thunder bomb, but off his back, and it destroys Darby Allin. Darby becomes the face in peril and gets launched across the ring by Hobbs and Bill. Then Starks misses a mocking Stinger splash in the corner, and not long after this, Darby gets the hot tag to Sting, who clears house. Sting and Jericho hit stereo splashes, but then Starks takes control and hits Old School on Sting. Sting fights back with a bit of a messy slam on Starks. Hopefully, Ricky's okay. Jericho hits a code-breaker on Big Bill, who no-sells it, and then also hits a bit of a messy slam on Jericho. The match at this point was kind of grounding to a halt, but Hobbs gets in and picks things back up with a huge spinebuster. He picks up Jericho for a big slam, but Darby hits a springboard coffin drop into Jericho, but knocking him onto Hobbs. Takeshita hits a double German suplex on Darby and Sammy simultaneously, but then Sting catches Takeshita in the Scorpion Deathlock. Don Callis gets in with the baseball bat, but Sting chases him away and then puts on stereo submissions with Jericho, but then the other two heels break it all up. There's a big dive from Darby to the outside, and Sammy wants one of his own, but Starks cuts him off with the huge spear, but it only gets 2. Now we're into the finishing stretch as Starks looks for the Rochambeau, but Sammy slips out, hits the GTH, heads up top, and nails a shooting star press for the 3 count. After the match, Sting gets a big standing ovation in the ring as this is his last match in the state of New York. The next match is Julia Hart defending the TBS title against Abaddon. The House of Black's house rules are in effect, with the challenger choosing a stipulation, and commentary informs us that Abaddon has selected biting legal. There's a big "this is spooky" chant to start, and then Abaddon hits an instant RKO out of nowhere to begin the match, followed by lots of lariats in the corner. Julia gets a near fall from a crucifix, and then there's lots of staring and being spooky at each other in between moves. They head outside, and Julia hits a suplex on the floor. Then back inside, Abaddon pulls Julia throat first into the ropes, but the champion retakes control until Abaddon bites her arm, because remember, biting is legal. Abaddon hits double knees in the corner, and then a lung blower for a near fall. Julia hits a big superplex, and then locks in Heartless, but Abaddon reverses it with a roll-up for, again, a near fall. There's more biting, this time to the head of Julia, but as the referee checks on the champion, Sky Blue runs out and shoves Abaddon off the top rope. Sky hides under the ring, but Abaddon heads down after her, basically no-selling the attack, pulls Sky out and takes her down with a running knee. However, this is enough of a distraction for Julia to retake control of the match and throw Abaddon into the ring steps. She rolls her challenger back into the ring, heads up top, and hits the moonsault for 3. Julia Hart is still the TBS champion. Next up is the no DQ match for the TNT Championship. Christian Cage defending against his former friend and arch nemesis, Adam Copeland. Copeland, I think, is wearing the same attire he wore against Mick Foley in that excellent WrestleMania hardcore match, so if you want fire, then you might be in luck. Copeland attacks Christian during his entrance and takes control straight away. He also takes a drink from the crowd and smashes it into his own head. Yeah! Busts him open a little bit. He tries to stomp Christian's head on the ring steps, but Christian runs away through the crowd, so Copeland chases him up a flight of stairs and takes out Nick Wayne, who was following from behind. Copeland heads up to the next section of the crowd and leaps off with a huge splash. Back down to the ring they go, where Christian avoids a spear and finally, for the first time after a little while, takes control of the match. He stomps Copeland's head on the steps, which busts him open again and covers him, but it only gets 2. He then attacks Copeland with a kendo stick and chokes him out with it through the ropes. Christian stands a chair over Copeland's body, sits on it, and locks in a Boston Crab, but Copeland is able to power out. He retakes control and beats down Christian with the kendo stick before locking in the crossface, but Christian grabs a metal pipe to try and counter it, only for Copeland to take it off him and use it in the submission, but Christian manages eventually to scramble free. Copeland gets a ladder from under the ring and slingshots Christian into it face first. A little bit later on, they meet at the top of the ladder and Christian hits a very nice sunset bomb all the way down to the canvas, but it only gets 2. A table is set up on the outside and Copeland looks to spear Christian through the ropes through the table, but Nick Wayne pulls Christian out of the way, so Copeland backs out, and the crowd do not like Nick Wayne for this. Copeland hits the Impaler DDT onto a chair and goes for a concerto, but Nick Wayne stops him, and then Christian hits Copeland with a low blow with the edge of the chair, but Copeland kicks out of the subsequent roll-up. Christian looks for a spear through a table in the corner, but Copeland leapfrogs out of the way and turns the tables, instead spearing the champion through that table. He makes the cover, but Shayna Wayne pulls the referee out of the ring. Copeland heads outside and backs Shayna down, but then Nick Wayne hits him with the TNT title belt from behind, and then a cutter from the corner to the outside of the ring. Back inside, Christian hits the kill switch, but Copeland manages to kick out, so then Christian and Nick Wayne get desperate. They douse the table on the outside with lighter fluid and set it alight. But Copeland turns the tide with a spear inside the ring to Christian, then powerbombs Nick Wayne into the flaming table. He kind of misses, it doesn't break, but Nick Wayne still hits the table, and, it's still very effective. Back in the ring, Christian looks to blindside Copeland with the TNT title belt, but gets hit with a low blow, followed by the kill switch from Copeland, and that's enough for 3. Adam Copeland is the new TNT champion, and may he have a long and glorious reign. Copeland celebrates with the belt, but then Killswitch, aka, Luchasaurus Killswitch, attacks him from behind and hits a chokeslam through a steel chair. Killswitch has the contract that he won for a title match in the pre-show Battle Royal, which commentary tells us is for any time, like the Money in the Bank contract, I guess. He's about to cash it in, but then Christian convinces him to give him the title shot instead. Christian signs the contract and the match begins. Christian hits a spear on an exhausted Copeland and immediately wins back the TNT title, which on one hand is quite nonsensical. Can you give the title shot to just anybody even if he didn't earn it? But on the other hand, it's also really funny. So, swings and roundabouts. Next up, we have the final of the Continental Classic Tournament, Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley. There's a big stare down to start the match, but kind of a friendly stare down because they're friends, but tough friends that want to beat each other up. This one has quite a tentative start with lots of grappling on the mat as well, until Moxley lands a heavy kick to the spine, but Kingston no-sells it. Then he does the same to Moxley, and Moxley stands up as well. They have a chop exchange until Moxley rolls out of the ring, but Eddie follows him with a big dive. Unfortunately, he overshoots it and seems to land on his head, or maybe slams his head into the bottom of the guardrail. Either way, it's a very nasty landing. Fortunately, he's able to continue the match. Moxley presses the advantage with a paradigm shift on the floor and heads back in for the countout, but Eddie makes it back inside. Moxley then blocks a chop attempt with his forearms and shortly afterwards hits a pile driver, but it only gets 2. Moxley locks in an STF, but Kingston bites him to break free. They then have more chops back and forth, and they're flipping the bird at each other and everything. Moxley then powers out of a suplex, as in, Kingston hits the suplex, but Moxley stands up out of it. But he's woozy after standing up, so Kingston hits a spinning back fist, taking advantage, but he's too hurt to make the cover in time. Eddie then hits rapid-fire chops in the corner, but Moxley grabs a cutter out of nowhere, but then Eddie pops up and fires right back with another back fist, but then Moxley fires right back with a big lariat. Eddie gets a near fall off a Northern Lights bomb and locks in the Bulldog choke, which on commentary they do a good job of mentioning that this is how Moxley has beaten Eddie in the past, but now Eddie's got it locked in on Mox. However, Moxley fights out of it and locks in a Bulldog choke of his own. He then transitions into a sleeper and Eddie almost passes out, but fights up to his feet and collapses into the ropes to break the hold. Eddie hits another back fist and another Northern Lights bomb, but both of them only get a 2 count. Both men exchange headbutts on their knees, then they rise to their feet and exchange hard slaps. Then Eddie out of nowhere hits a final back fist and wins the tournament, pinning Jon Moxley and becoming the Triple Crown champion. Eddie is presented with his 3 belts for winning the tournament, the Ring of Honor World title and the New Japan Strong title that he put on the line in this tournament, and the new belt as well for winning the whole thing. Moxley gets to his feet and they have a big, respectful hug. Nice stuff. Really brutal, hard-hitting match, and I think it was very good. Now it's time for the main event. MJF defending the AEW World Championship against Samoa Joe. MJF gets a special video package intro with the people of Long Island, New York saying, "Hey, he's our scumbag." I'm so sorry. Both men get in the ring. MJF pauses before the bell and points to the entrance. And here comes Adam Cole on his crutches to a big pop. MJF's shoulder is all strapped up, but he looks confident to start strutting around, only to get immediately shoved over by Joe as the bell rings. The referee breaks them apart in the corner, and MJF takes advantage with a quick eye poke, which the crowd enjoy. Joe quickly retakes control, though, and destroys MJF with strikes before working that injured arm. He continues to press the advantage, but MJF grabs a roll-up for 2, then another one, but again, Joe is able to kick out. Joe reverses the kangaroo kick into a slingshot to the apron, where MJF unwisely tries to skin the cat back inside, and Joe just boots him in the head. He follows it up with a big dive to the outside, and the champion's in big trouble. Back in the ring, Joe hits various suplexes and makes the cover, but MJF gets a leg on the bottom rope. They head back to the apron, and Joe hits a terrifying muscle buster on the apron. He throws MJF back inside, and MJF just kicks out of the pinfall attempt in time. A little bit later on, MJF manages to fight his way back into the match. He hits the 10 punches in the corner, as well as a big bite to the forehead. He goes again for the kangaroo kick, but Joe just kicks him in the chest this time. MJF gets Joe to the apron and hits the heat seeker, but it only gets 2. He goes for a second one, but Joe carries him out of there on his shoulders, but then MJF slips down to the canvas and locks in the salt of the earth. Again though, Joe reverses this and applies an armbar of his own, but with Cole urging MJF on from ringside, he manages to make the ropes. The 2 men fight over another submission attempt, but end up colliding with the referee, who collapses. Joe heads up top, but gets hit with a low blow, followed by an F5 from MJF. He makes the cover, but the referee's still recovering, which gives Joe enough time to just kick out. MJF asks Cole for the Dynamite Diamond ring, but Cole fumbles for it in his pockets. It looks like he's lost it. He finds it just in time, but Joe clamps on a coquina clutch before MJF can use it. The champion does the Bret Hart turnbuckle reversal, but Joe kicks out and keeps the clutch applied. MJF's fading. The referee lifts his hand once, twice, and it drops a 3rd time, and that's it. Samoa Joe is the new AEW World Champion. Wow. Joe leaves with the belt pretty quickly, and it becomes apparent that there's more to the show. We're probably going to find out who the Devil is. Cole consoles MJF in the ring, but the Devil's minions appear. They grab both men and get ready to attack them with a chair, and then the lights go down. When they come back up, Cole is sat in the chair with the minions around him. They unmask to reveal Roddy Strong, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Wardlow. Cole reveals that he has the Devil mask, he is the Devil, and they beat down the former champion. MJF is left lying on the canvas with the Devil, Adam Cole, and his minions surrounding him, and that's how the show ends. So there you have it. I don't know whether you guys think the same, quite an abrupt title change given the length of MJF's reign, I don't know. And then the reveal of Adam Cole being the Devil. Why didn't you turn on him earlier, Adam? You could have won the belt at Wembley if you'd done it then, mate. Never mind. Anyway, Adam Cole's the Devil. Samoa Joe is the new AEW World Champion. And I'll be interested to hear what you think. Please leave your thoughts and opinions on those developments and any of the matches in that comment section down below. And thank you very much for watching this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Thank you to Owen and Sam for editing this video. And have a great new year, everybody. I'll see you in 2024. Thanks for watching.